I am obedient as it gets. During the elections, I couldn't stand Mr. Keamo's shenanigans. However, I'm most impressed with Mr. Keamo. He has shown competence and a desire to advance the cause of aviation in Nigeria. Kudos to Mr. Keamo. I am rooting for your utmost success as a minister. You know what you're talking about. Corruption is the greatest enemy of Nigeria. Customer service is key to Nigeria's success. Please do as you said. Bravo. Training is important. Please, Aviation Minister, look into Enugu International Airport. There's nothing to show for it as an international airport.
Hello there, and wow, your comments from our last edition of the show were indeed inspiring and, if I may use the word, hot. Thank you so much for sending them in. We'll try as much as possible to put them out there and let the whole world know what you're saying about the things happening in our country. Talking about things happening in our country today, let's look at a state of the nation, especially as it concerns the power sector. We discussed the power sector before. We had to look at the review of the tariffs for those in Band A. But what about the effect of that review? How has it been? Has power improved in any way? What should be the situation? What about the impact of the different policies of government on the economy and indeed the socio-cultural well-being of the Nigerian people? These are things that concern a lot of people, and some are wondering, is the government really thinking about the people that elected them? Whether from the opposition or not. One man is concerned. He feels that the government is not doing enough. Maybe they're doing their best, but they're not doing enough. And when he was asked about his own time when he was in government, he said, I did my best. But was his best good enough? NewsNight sat down for a conversation with a former governor of Benue State and a former senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who incidentally was the chairman of the Senate committee that drafted the Electricity Act that Nigeria is using now. Senator Gabriel Suswam sat with us and he spoke to us about the effects of the tariff review and the power sector law. How is that working out? Senator Gabriel Suswam, thank you for speaking to us on NewsNight.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while. I mean, you've had a few stints speaking to the media, but since you left the seat as the number one citizen of Benue State, you've been somewhat quiet, maybe because of your senatorial responsibilities. You want to walk us through that point from being governor to here now?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that as governor of the state, you are more visible within the polity than being a senator. The reason being that as governor, you are in charge of a Thai sub-regional government, and a lot of issues that touches and concern the people of that sub-region are your responsibility. And so you are more visible. As a senator, you have 109 senators, and so you can't be as visible as being a governor, as a floor senator, except you are maybe one of the presiding officers. And so when I left office as governor, I felt that I should first other than allow the persons who succeeded me to be also in charge. It is only here that people leave office as governor or as president and still want to interfere in the running of government as if they are still there. Elsewhere, in developed economies, once people leave office, they leave office and find some other things to do and allow the current incumbent person to oppress the way he or she wants. And so I believe in that, and so I left government house Makede, and I felt that I had no business as far as the issue of governance of Benue is concerned. I was representing a senatorial zone, and I was more interested in attracting whatever project I can or I could to that senatorial district. That restricted my responsibility to a small area of the states. And so I just felt that, well, there's no need behaving as if you were still.
But okay, so let's look at that bit about, yes, when you were the number one citizen in Benue, you had legislators who were representing certain constituencies in the state. Now you are representing those people at the federal level. And some will say that you are closer to the people now. What would you say it's been like? Are the people really getting the governance that they're supposed to get now that you're closer to them and seeing maybe from their eye the way things are done from the number one seat?
Well, before I became governor, I was a two-time member of House of Representatives. So I was well placed to appreciate the issue that confront the people. And so when I became governor, I wasn't a governor that didn't know the issues. I was well abreast of the issues because, like you said, as a member of House of Reps, I was closer to the people than I was when I was governor. Because as governor, you have lieutenants. Because of the enormity of the work, you're unable to reach the people the way you would want. But as member of House of Reps, I could go sit down in villages and have drinks with them and listen to what their problems were. And so I came into government house marketing well prepared. And that is why from day one, I kicked off working as governor. In fact, when President Yar'Adua visited me in the first 100 days of his government, I was driving with him in the car. He asked me, he said, how did you do this? Because he was surprised that within those few months, I was able to put some things on ground. And I told him, I said, well, as a member of House of Reps, I knew the issues. And so I didn't need to think about it. I just knew that this was what I'm coming to do. So as a senator, I also, because I've had the experience of House of Reps and as governor, and then now being reduced to a small responsibility, I was able to attend to that very, very well, attracting federal government projects in terms of electricity, building schools for classroom blocks, and to my senatorial zone.
Yeah.
So I was able to represent those people very well.
So let's look at it as a nation holistically. Nigeria now. You've done the bit you could do for Benue, and yes, you're still doing. But when you look at it, the Senate and what is being done for the nation, the state of the Nigerian state as it is, economically, socially, would you say we are on course?
Well, it's rather unfortunate that right from the Buhari government, where the mantra was that we changed, mantra of change was what was the sing-song then. Unfortunately, people didn't ask, what kind of change are you bringing into governance? Is it positive change or negative change? What we experienced under those 8 years is what has dovetailed into what we're experiencing today, because whatever foundation that was built by the PDP was completely destroyed by that government. And we now began a journey to the abyss. Now, the state of the nation now economically is nothing to talk about. It's unfortunate that the current leadership does not have what it takes to change the economic fortune of this country. All the economic policies that they've engaged in or they've taken clearly indicates that they can't solve the economic problem of this country. And I'll give you some example. You remove subsidy from day one, you now float your currency, you now increase the borrowing interest rate. Now the tariff for electricity has been increased. How do a common man, how do an average man survive under those kind of heavy, bad economic policies? First, subsidy is itself a problem. It enhances the cost of transportation, cost of production. So because that is, you are dealing with energy. Now that has been removed. So the person who is selling food stuff, who now was transporting maybe from Nyanya inside Abuja, at the cost of 5,000 now has to transport that at the cost of 15,000. Where do you think the cost will end? To the consumer. And so inflation in this country, inflation is at 31 point something percent. It's unheard of. Now, you look at floating of the currency, which there's no developing economy that has floated their currency that have gotten out of it. None. Is it the Latin Americans? They have not. Most in the 80s and early 90s, most of the problems of Latin American countries was the fact that they took very bad economic policies, such as this current government is taking. Floating of currency, removal of subsidy here and there.
If I may come in here, there will be that argument from this government or the government before that it's a product of what your party did that led to this.
No, that argument is baseless. It's baseless in the sense that when President Goodluck left, what was the exchange rate of the naira? What was the exchange rate? What was the pump price? What was the tariff, electricity tariff? What was the interest rate? So that argument is baseless. It's people who lack the capacity that give excuses. If you give me an assignment and I have no capacity, I will begin to give excuses. That is what is happening. It's lack of capacity. Because most of the people put in places as ministers are people who lack capacity to hold those offices. One would have believed that the president, knowing the president and the kind of people he selected in Lagos, most people thought that the president would sit down and did what he did in Lagos in terms of getting people who understand what they are doing. Unfortunately, maybe it's a larger environment and so it's different. Unfortunately, when you have lieutenants who themselves have no value to add, then there's a problem with that. They have no value. And so that is why most of these policies are being taken. I've looked at the budget, for instance. You have a budget that, is basically not implementable ab initio. So how are we going to move forward? Because you have a deficit of close to 9 trillion, right? Now you have financing items for that deficit, which themselves will not be realizable. So you can add that to even the deficit, because when you say that you are going to sell government assets to finance the budget, since 2019, when I was in the Senate, that has been a recurring decimal. Every year in, year out, they say sell of government to finance the deficit. You can't realize them. Now you are going to...
But some assets have been sold, haven't they?
No, but financing budget, when you have a budget, a deficit of over 9 trillion, then your financing items of that budget is that you are going to borrow money both internally and externally. Borrowing money internally means that they will continue to print money such as the Buhari government was doing. That now, no matter what you try, you continue to depreciate our currency once you are printing money, what they call it quantitative easing. Now, not only that, you've gone ahead, like I said, to increase tariff on electricity. What are the manufacturers going to do? Yes, they can pay that tariff. They transfer it directly to the consumers. What is the earning capacity of an average Nigerian? What is the earning capacity? So the electricity alone is about 10 times more than the minimum wage of an average worker in this country. So how is the country going to operate? So these are some of the issues that we have that worries the party PDP. And we believe that PDP, based on what we've done in the last 16 years, where Nigerians at least, we have a middle class in this country, that has been wiped out completely. Now, we want to come back as a government under PDP, that we can bring back those old good days. And we can do it.
But right now,
PDP has the resource to do that.
As it is now, in this state of the country that we're in, we have PDP lawmakers, senators, we have PDP lawmakers, the House of Representatives.
The minority.
Even at that, they can still pull their numbers together.
In a democracy, minority can have their say, the majority will have their way. So yes, we'll have PDP senators. They're in minority as against the ruling party. And as far as the National Assembly is concerned, I know how it operates. Once you're in the minority, you can make a lot of noise. But most time that noise ends either in the media or in the chambers.
But Your Excellency, if I may just step back a bit here. Some of these people who are in the ruling party right now used to be in the APC, in the PDP. They used to know how life was then. The exchange rate that was comfortable for all Nigerians. Now they're in the ruling party. What are they doing about it? Can't the PDP members speak to them and remind them of how it was before?
You know, you have a leadership of a different party. You now join them. Their campaign was that PDP didn't do what they're supposed to do. Now you decide to join them, that leadership. You have very little to contribute in that government. And the late Ojukwu say, if you can't beat them, you join them. So most of them are joining and just have this laid-back attitude as to what is going on. And rather than bring some of the PDP magic wand to know what is happening, they're just there. It is, let's come and join them and participate in whatever that is going on. It's very unfortunate what is happening. Our democracy, instead of progressing, is retrogressing.
Where then is the opposition that should keep the ruling party on their feet?
Well, the opposition, you know, this government will be 1 year next month. We've given the government that holiday to see what they're capable of doing, whether there are indications that this government have capacity to take Nigeria out of the wood. Unfortunately, we've seen that this government is taking Nigeria down the abyss. We're actually now hanging by the precipice as a country. And every day, new policies, new economic policies, new social policies are taken. They are anti-people. They are completely anti-people. And so we are now building back as opposition PDP. Will we put ourselves together to provide that viable alternative for Nigerians, the PDP that they knew? Now that they have a basis for comparison, they now know that PDP was a far better party than what they were promised, the change they were promised.
But the PDP is in disarray.
No, it's not. You know, when you've not contested the election before, when you lose election, you know, the initial shock, you need to absorb it. And we have absorbed the shock of losing that election. Now we are prepared to move forward, get ourselves organized, and then present that alternative that Nigerians are looking for. Now there's a basis for comparison. So the change that was promised is like a mirage. And so when PDP put themselves together, we're going to put ourselves together. In spite of the seemingly differences that you read on the newspaper, most of them are not necessarily true. But we have problems, no doubt about that. But those problems, we're going to sit together and sort it.
What are those problems? Since you say what we're reading,
we have the problems after the presidential primaries of PDP. Problems started where some people felt shortchanged and were not properly. Those issues were not properly addressed, and so they didn't work for the party. So the party lost election, and that has continued to follow us. For us to sit down and address that, we need a strong leadership at the PDP headquarters that will be able to bring people together, hold constant meetings, and look at the issues that are preventing PDP from presenting the viable opposition that Nigerians are looking for. And so we're going to do that. There are meetings that have been slated for this month. Hopefully, all of these issues will be addressed and we'll be able to come out stronger. You'll begin to see a renewed PDP, a resuscitated PDP, that we address the issue. We're not going to be destructive in addressing some of these economic issues we will be very constructive. We'll take them one by one.
Yeah.
We'll look at the issues as they come. and address them. We're not just going to be insulting the APC government. No, we will not do that. We will be very constructive.
Indeed.
And Nigerians already see what is going on.
Nigerians wouldn't expect
you don't need to tell somebody who was buying a loaf of bread at 5,000, who is now buying a loaf of bread at 10,000. You just need to remind him, during PDP, how much were you buying that?
Yeah.
And so it's a simple campaign as far as I'm concerned.
Nigerians wouldn't expect any less from the PDP because they were the ones that started this whole process, democratic process. Seeing that now that they've lost the elections, it's been practically two terms, two governments, the Buhari government and now the Tinubu government. And the PDP is still trying to find its feet. One wonders what happened to that umbrella that covered everybody.
You know, a lot of things happened, like I said. When people are in government, there's this tendency that you begin to believe that you are invincible. PDP were in government for 16 years, and a lot of people had this messianic attitude towards issues, and that nauseated quite a number of people, most Nigerians, in spite of the fact that PDP was doing very well. Some personalities and some characters within PDP, their behavior nauseated most Nigerians. But because Nigerians had no basis to compare PDP with another party, so they just felt that another party would be better, especially when, like I said, this change mantra was all over the place. So people just felt that, well, we are tired of this PDP, was tired of some characters in PDP. So let's go for this change. That change is what has brought us to where we are. It was a negative change. And that is what has continued to go down. Because the APC, unfortunately, were not prepared for governance. And so instead of them to sit down and look at what PDP was doing and get people, resource persons, who can address the economic problem that afflict this country. It was all about, we're in power now, so it's all about that. The paraphernalia of office. It is not about governance with what we've seen happening now. And so we need people who understand the basic economic issues that afflict this country. That is what we need. It is not just voting people. Most of these people, you ask them, what is the GDP of this country? They don't even know it. And once you don't know the basic economic issues that afflict your country, there's no way you can address them. That is what is happening now. Garbage in, garbage out. You try this one today, it gets worse. How do you take those policies? Removal of subsidy, floating of currency, increase in borrowing rate, and then increase in tariff. 300% increase in tariff. Where does that happen? How? When you know that people are already overburdened. It is because the people who are supporting the president are unable to sit down with the president and say, Mr. President, this is what we do that will address the sufferings of Nigeria. People just rush there and say, well, Mr. President, this is happening in America. All is about America and UK. But the social environment in these places are totally different from the social environment here.
But maybe they're not here listening to the president when he continues to use the word homegrown solutions. Maybe they're not hearing him.
No, I don't think so. And I think, quite frankly, that the president needs to do something about that. Because the essence of having lieutenant is for them to add value to what you are doing. And unfortunately, as a leader, if you are not aware that people you have around you are not adding value, that is very unfortunate. These people are not adding value. The burden on Nigeria is excessive. The burden is excessive. And, it's leading to a situation where people can no longer take it any longer. Because you now say that the tariff increase is for band A. That addresses people who are relatively better off. That includes industries too. Those same people that you are burdening are the ones who are engaged in production and provisions of services. So that automatically transfer whatever you think is on that band A people I saw the ministers of power argument, which was just very unfortunate. That is what I'm saying. The minister of power should have been in a position where he can advise the president better.
When NewsNight returns, we asked Senator Suswam, what was his time like in office? You need to hear what he had to say. Senator Gabriel Suswam, again, thank you for speaking with us. Before that short break, I said we're going to look at what PDP is doing, or what PDP did, what PDP says is going to do, and where to take Nigeria. Why you think you're the person that should do that? Because, for one, let's start from the PDP. When the PDP left office, suddenly things began to open up. Corruption cases here and there, money stolen, billions that were given out for elections not accounted for. Indeed, there's a case that is still on, former NSA. The case is still on. And there are some other cases, PDP members who are having their cases rewoken again by the EFCC. What's going on?
You see, I don't think I'm in a position to comment generally on the issues of corruption in this country. What I would say is that Nigerians have been pushed to a level where corruption has permeated down the entire gamut of the society. And so it is not something that is limited to people who are in office. If you go to the private sector, there's a lot of corruption there. If we would now come to government, because government is where, they relate to people all the time. So most of the searchlight is on government personnel, politicians who are in government and all of that. Corruption in the civil service is beyond your imagination. And so corruption has gone through the entire gamut of this society. It is for us to sit down and look at how we can address the issues of corruption. Some of the people accused are not necessarily, or were not necessarily people you can say that they were corrupt to the extent that they were charged or people deemed them corrupt. When you are in government, there are certain actions or decisions that you take, which with good intentions, but when they put them through the lenses of EFCC or ICPC, those actions that you were taking with good intention constitute corrupt practices. That is what happened to most of these people. If we want to see real corruption, go into the civil service. I have been a budget person, so I know what I'm saying. You have directors, you know their worth, you'll be amazed at what happened, but it's concentrated, the searchlight is concentrated more on politicians. So having said that, I would like to say that, to address corruption, it is for you to close the loopholes. Once the loopholes are closed, and it's easy to close the loopholes, you can start with budget. Once you are able to look at the budget critically, then it will be easy for us, because the budget is, after budget is passed, is where money they began to disburse money to various things. A lot of corrupt practices are built in that budget. And so once we address how we budget, corruption will be drastically reduced in this country.
Someone actually said the budget is supposed to be a document and a tool for the helmsman, that is a governor or president, to control the civil service. And so the budget office should be in the office of the governor.
Budget is drawn by the civil servants. It's not by politicians. They're the one who draw the budget. What politicians do is that they bring a budget. You didn't initiate a document. So as much as you will scrutinize it, the person who initiated that budget knows exactly. If you say that, I'm going to buy this table, right, in this place, it is you who initiated it, who knows whether that table fits into where you say you will put it. And so whether you are going to just take that money or actually buy that table. So there's a whole lot about the way we budget in this country that is not correct. And corruption is embedded in year out budgeting of this country, because that is a document that tell us how monies of this country, the revenue side, how we get money and how we expend it. And so everything about corruption is in our budget. So we need to critically sit down. And as president, it's easy. There are a lot of people who are very knowledgeable in these things, who can actually sit down and look at how we budget. And you see that corruption will drastically reduce, because if in a ministry, this thing they call padding, budget padding is done from the ministries, not from the National Assembly. It is the civil servants who pad budget, not the members of the National Assembly.
But Senator Ningi,
no, what he said was not padding. What happened there was not padding. And he told me personally, because I met him, he said he never mentioned the word padding. What happened there is not padding. It's not padding, because the president never complained at any one time that the budget he brought to the National Assembly and the budget he signed are two different documents. It's only a budget is said to be padded only when what the president submits, what he signs are two different documents. If he submits 10 naira and what is brought back to him to sign is 15, it means that 5 naira has been added. That constitutes padding. But the president has never complained that what he submitted was different from what he signed. So that is not padding. Padding is properly done by the civil servants. Because if this table is 10 naira and they are now putting it at 20, it means you've padded it. So National Assembly are not involved in budget padding. Where what happened normally is that, for instance, if the benchmark, the president submit a budget with a benchmark of maybe $50, and is brought to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly look at it and consider that it's okay, with this $50, we'll not be able to address some of the infrastructural deficit that we have in this country. Mr. President, why don't you make it 55? That is jointly done. It is not done unilaterally by the National Assembly. They will sit down with the executive and say, look, can we enhance this by $5? And that is done. So then you bring in new project. That does not in any way constitute padding. Padding is when, like I've told you, if the president had brought a budget of 20 trillion and then the National Assembly added 2 trillion on top, and then they take it back for him to sign, it means 2 trillion have been added to the budget, and that constitutes padding. But Ningi never mentioned padding. That is what he told me. You know, the interview he did was in Hausa. And it is difficult most of the time to translate when you speak in vernacular into English. And so I believe that the people who translated that, not knowing how to capture what he said, say that he padded. Because I met him and I said, Ningi, you should have known better. And he said, no, he never mentioned padding. Padding is done by the civil servant. That I know.
Okay. So in this case now, Senator Ningi did explain this on the floor that day before he was suspended. But there are those who will say that the PDP began the democracy that we are enjoying at the moment.
Yeah.
So the party may not have started the budgeting process that the country is using right now. So the PDP has been out of power and now is beginning to find its footing. And you have come up at some time to say that you know what it will take to get the party running again as it should be. Should anyone look to you?
Since 1998, as a young man when I joined PDP, I've never for 1 minute left PDP. I've participated in all PDP activities. I've done party activities. I have been given assignments by the party, which I've carried out. And so to some large extent, I know the party horizontally and vertically. And so I'm better placed to put the party together. I know the personalities involved, some of them personally, and some I have worked with. I, to some extent, know the issues that have confronted the party and have put us in crisis. It's not rocket science for one to put PDP back together. These are human beings that need to talk to. Some you need to massage their ego. Like I said, I know these people individually. So we can sit down together with them, appreciate what worries them, what the issues are, and be able to come back together once again as a formidable party that will present that alternative to Nigerians.
There are a lot of people there who were in the PDP and moved to APC, and now they've been given responsibility. And in some PDP sources are saying that they moved the nation back to.
I've been governor before, and so if I have a commissioner, no matter how high sounding that commissioner is, if I don't listen to him, he's useless. And so when you have leadership, and then you bring former PDP members who have run to that party for different reasons, that then, some of them are hiding, they just want positions and they have nothing to contribute, they're just staying there. There's nothing that they can add. There's nothing they can add. But you have quite a number of PDP who are in the ruling party who are doing well in the positions that have been given. I don't want to mention them, but right from Buhari, you have a few of them. And even in the current administration of President Tinubu, you have some PDP members who are there, who are doing quite well. And you know them, and Nigerians know them. So because they are coming with a lot of experience, look at what is happening in power. Power needs somebody who understands the politics of power. Somebody with experience. Not somebody who have no idea about how the power sector works. That is what I'm saying. You have a lot of ministries that is filled with people who have no clue as to how those ministries operate. It will be very difficult for them to add value to what President Tinubu wants to do. That would be very difficult. And it's unfortunate.
But we don't have this power thing that we keep talking about. We've had a lot of things, a lot of investments in the power sector. For instance, there's a $16 billion that's still...
Without those investments, I'll tell you this. When in 2004, Obasanjo submitted a reform power sector bill to enable him liberalize the power sector, unbundle the sector. He needed some money then to be able to enhance the capacity of generation in this country. The National Assembly in 2004 passed that Reform Act, which allowed him to unbundle the sector, where you now have 11 discos and GEMCOs, and then the transmission line. He now got money. At that time, Nigerians' generation was in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 2,000. Obasanjo enhanced the generating capacity of this country to what we now have, about 13,000 megawatts. The problem that bedeviled the power sector has been basically that of transmission and distribution. We have redundant power generation of about 13,000. Transmission has only been able to achieve 4,000 max. So Obasanjo built about 10 thermal power plants with that money. So Obasanjo didn't say that he would solve the entire problem of power. He laid the foundation for subsequent government to build on. To build 10 thermal power plants using gas. That is why most of the thermal power plants are within the South-South region. You have in Abia, Alauji, you have Calabar, you have Omotosho, you have Papalanto, you have Baram, you have a whole lot of them around that area. He built it. Now, subsequent government were supposed to leverage on that. So if subsequent government have failed to do it, every time they are referring to money spent, that money was well spent. Yes, there might be some issues here and there, but he built those power plants. And that is why we can now boast that we now have 13,000 capacity of generation. Buhari started where I believe that if this current government follow up on the issue of transmission, because he brought in Siemens. Siemens were to address the issues, the deficit in transmission and distribution. I don't know where that is, but that I thought was a very, very good program that the president started. If Siemens are properly engaged and that collaboration continue with Siemens, they will enhance the transmission capacity of TCN. Once that transmission capacity is enhanced, at least you have, even if we can just transmit 7,000 megawatts in this country, there will be consistent power supply. And then address the issues in the distribution sector. Distribution sector is basically in private hands. Sit down with them, know what the issues are, and then we can move forward. You know, now that we have renewable energy, the energy mix in this country is so viable, so viable, that a serious government will sit down and address the issue of power. If we address only the issue of power as a government, you address the unemployment situation in this country, because when there's consistent power supply, manufacturers will go back to their factory. Small scale industries will be open in villages where these youth will be employed. So power is very, very fundamental to the development of any country.
Excellency, you were part of the team in the National Assembly that practically unbundled the power sector, as in you moved power from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, which was signed by the president. So now the states have the backing of law to invest in power. But even before that, the discos are 40% owned by government, both federal and state. Couldn't the states have been able to use that opportunity to invest more so that they can generate power or distribute power to their own locals?
Let me tell you, when I read Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart, when I was in secondary school, and they said, the Agama lizard that jumped from the Iroko tree and falls down, if he looks round and see that nobody is clapping for him, he will nod his head and say, yes, I've done well. I think that as a Nigerian and as a former distinguished senator and as chairman of power, I did very well. For the first time in this country, Nigeria have an electricity act. I drafted that electricity act, sponsored it, and I want to, at all time, clap for President Tinubu for signing that. Because the outgoing president, Buhari, for whatever reason, refused to sign it. That piece of legislation, the Electricity Act, which I sponsored, drafted, with my committee on power, with the active support of the presiding officer, both the Femi Gbajamila, the current chief of staff to the president, and Senator Ahmed Lawan, the then Senate president. They supported me actively. That is the first time that Nigeria as a country is having an Electricity Act. I drafted it with my committee, I sponsored it, and President Tinubu, before our tenure expired, the 9th Senate, he signed that legislation. What has that legislation done to the power sector? It has expanded, where an individual can now generate, transmit, and distribute. That is what happened in advanced economies. And so now, people who have the wherewithal, whether they are states, whether they are individuals, whether they are companies, can do that. And in that piece of legislation, we have copiously provided for renewable energy, where you, as an individual, might decide that you want to generate 1 megawatt using solar panels. You will not go to get a license. It's free. 1 megawatts of power is not small power. You might decide to go to your village and say, look, I'm providing you power using renewable energy source, that is solar panels. And you'll be giving 1 megawatts of power can take close to 500 villages. That is what that legislation. It has also allowed state to generate, transmit, and distribute. So states have started. Lagos, for instance. Lagos, I think they are very advanced in doing that. Lagos, I think, Akwa Ibom. There are a few states that are making efforts to do that. I think Kaduna have even appointed management for the regulator. It also allows state to have their own regulators, such as you have NEC at the national level. So we now have a situation where the government, that is the leadership of this country, can sit down with people who want to invest in power and look at areas where they can give them even tax holidays. They can encourage them to go and generate power.
Your Excellency, before we go, you were two-term governor of Benue State. Would you say you left sound footprints?
I did my best, like I said. The reason why the Constitution provides that you would do only 2 terms as an executive, whether president or governor or elected chairman, is the fact that in those 8 years, you can do your best and leave another person to build on that. 8 years cannot complete anything in the life of any government. And so I would say that in terms of infrastructure, in terms of changing the perception of people about governance in Benue State, I did my best. But like I said, no one person can address all issues in governance.
So was your best good enough?
Yeah, of course, yes. I provided a lot of road infrastructure, which was lacking in Benue. We had very high deficit of that in terms of resource of training people. When I came into office as a young man, we used to hear one man who was the only pilot that every person knows in Benue. At the time I was leaving, now most time when you fly, listen to the names. It's either a Benue guy or a Benue lady. I trained a lot of them. I didn't stop at that. I trained marine engineers. You have some ladies who are now navigating ships. I have some of them call me, say, we're in Singapore now. I had that training. I trained underwater welders, Benue indigents who are serving outside the country. Unfortunately, most of them are employed by foreign companies. And so a whole lot of that. The civil service, when I came into government in Benue, the salary of a permanent secretary was 75,000. At the time I was leaving, they were collecting 450,000. That is what they collect up to now. I made sure that the welfare of civil servants is enhanced, and by extension, addressing the general well-being of the Benue people.
Did that affect the level of corruption in the civil service of Benue?
No. You see, because what they were collecting was grossly inadequate, the tendency was for people to look for other means. Once this was enhanced, you could see them happy, their families were happy because they could address some basic family problems with that amount of money. And so I would say that I changed a lot of things in Benue as governor. That is not to say that I was able to address everything, no. And so my subsequent successors also will do their best. And then it's like blocks, you know, you build here, what you can't finish, the other person comes and lay more blocks on it. What has happened in this country, a more developing country, unfortunately, is that there's no continuity in government. Once there's no continuity, nothing gets finished.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your day. We do appreciate you. Send us a comment. We'd like to engage with you. Our handles are right there on your screen. Also, send us a mail as well. But know this, that this conversation, you can go back to it again on our platform. That's channelcvid.com/podcast, or just go to youtube.com/channelsweb and you see us on the playlist there. Thank you once again. We'd like to hear from you, and we will be back same time. Do stay with us. Bye-bye.